On18. O scale and gauge. A while back, I built an engine in this unique modeling combo, just as a fun side project. If you know me well, though, nothing is ever truly a side project. With us now confirmed for that show in January, I thought it would be fun to bring a small On18 train to better showcase a pretty niche scale. I've only got the one engine right now though, and that's not gonna cut it at a train show. Let's get some cars for it to pull. Today we'll be building some 8-foot gondola kits by Make It With Calvin on Etsy. I like these cars because they're hybrid laser cut wood and 3D print. In my personal experience, wood is generally easier to paint and assemble, but 3D printing can handle the more precise shapes required to make a car, such as the frame. And that's exactly what Calvin has done. There's a 3D printed frame, but everything else is made out of wood. Speaking of which, we spray painted the car frame in Badger Model Flex Weathered Black. We did this at the same time we were painting the cars from earlier this week, just to save on time and effort. While we let the car frames dry, I got to assembling the actual gondolas. Well, okay, I actually worked on the other cars while the paint dried, but it sounded cooler in the script to blatantly lie about how we used our time. It feels wrong to leave that in now that I'm recording it, though. Regardless, I started by cutting out the sides and the base of the car, then gluing them together with wood glue. Each piece had notches in them to match up their alignment with the other pieces, which made assembly a little bit easier. It wasn't easy at first, though. I first tried assembling the gondola sides on their own, but that was way too hard. Getting the pieces to stand upright while gluing them down at a 90-degree angle was near impossible. Once I abandoned that idea, though, and instead started gluing the pieces to the floor of the car first, it was a cakewalk to assemble. The car ends could stand upright on their own thanks to the firm grip from the notches in the floor, and then the side walls could lean against the end walls to stand upright as the glue dried. I forgot to record this for who knows what reason, but I painted the stakes in Badger Model Flex Weathered Black, just like the car frame. For the record, I didn't paint the floor and sides of the car since I felt they were already a good shade of brown. With the stakes, I actually painted them while they were all still together. I figured it would be easier, and I was right, it was easier. For painting them, at least. Unfortunately, this warped the pieces somewhat, though I think that warping would have happened no matter what, unless they were already glued to the car, which would have made it harder to paint the stakes. The real trouble that I ran into is that the moisture from the paint weakened the pieces. So, when cutting them out from one another, I sometimes pulled on the pieces so hard with my knife that one piece would be ripped in half. To avoid doing this, instead of pulling to slash through the wood, I instead pushed down to chop the wood, which worked much better. And, fortunately, the kit had a spare set of stakes, giving me quick and easy replacements for the ones that I broke. On the first car, I tried gluing the stakes in place with wood glue. Emphasis on try. Every time I glued a stake down, it would pull itself away from the glue thanks to the warping because of the paint. To fix this, I swapped to CA superglue so that the glue would dry much faster, which helped to combat the warping. I also took a second to add a touch of superglue to the underside of the car to better attach the frame to the floor. I then popped in the wheel sets. I used Intermountain 33-inch metal wheels with 0.554-inch axles. That last point is kind of weird. Apparently in N-scale, Microtrains uses axles that are 0.017 inches shorter compared to other manufacturers. I'm surprised I didn't know this. N used to be my main scale before I started doing models on YouTube. I learned this from the guy who was running the shop we bought these from, and after he got confused by On18, he suggested we try the standard stuff. Turns out he made the right call. The last thing to do was couplers. I just superglued the coupler boxes in place. There weren't any obvious screw holes in the frame, or any markings to make your own, so I couldn't center the coupler boxes based on that. However, the glue gave me a few seconds to adjust the coupler's location before it fully dried, thus giving me a small window to properly center each coupler. Most people use N-scale couplers for On18 trains, but I went for HO ones instead since they're easier to operate. Eventually, I'd like to try and turn this into a small switching layout that I can take to train shows for other people to try, and HO scale couplers are more manageable for most people. With that said, though, I did have to cut down the uncoupling pins. HO couplers are designed with HO clearances in mind, and this very much isn't HO. The uncoupling pins would have clipped straight through the road bed. So, using a very strong pair of pliers, we cut them down. Today's video is a little short, but so was Monday's, so I guess this helps to even out the video schedule a little bit. The train we have isn't all that long, but I feel like it's a good representation of what a real 18-inch gauge train would have been, and a nice simple representation of On18 as a niche gauge. I think what this is really missing is a dude to sit in the cab, both to have an engineer and also to show how small these trains are. I gotta say though, I'm really enjoying these occasional detours into On18. It's a bit of a silly scale, but in a fun way, and every project is nice and bite-sized. Maybe this should be our next project layout after finishing the little loop, That's all I've got for you today, though. Thanks for watching. Cheers, folks.